Hey guys, welcome to another Home Lab series video here today. In today's video, we'll be showing you how you can self-host SearXNG in your home lab. So SearXNG is actually a meta search engine that will compile all your search across, multiple different search engines like Google, Bing, whatever else there is out there. I'm sure there is actually. I'm mainly a Google guy when I have to Google. But the nice thing about this is that SearXNG doesn't do profile or tracking because you can self-host it, so everything's kind of stored on your own instance. And it's not profiled, so you every single time like you go to Google, it more or less they track all your searches, give or take, right? But that's kind of how the internet works nowadays. So, but it's kind of nice to be able to use it so that you don't get some like weird ads that are like, oh hey, you should go buy this thing like a minis form because you've searched it like 500 times. Yeah, I get that a lot. Don't worry, I'm not buying my third one yet is a key point, but stuff like that, which is kind of nice. So I figured I can show you how you can self-host it in case you're interested. I may actually end up using it a lot because it seems actually pretty cool, and then you won't ever need to use Google ever again. So we have to see how the searching works and if it's good enough. So let's get started on how you can set it up. All right, so first off, we'll start off with our DNS. So we want to make this resolvable. So we're going to create a VM with a DNS entry so that it can resolve when we do go to it. So we can go to like https searxng.dragon.local, right? As opposed to type in an IP every single time you want to do a Google search. Because let's be honest, no one wants to type in an IP address to do a search, right? So we'll name it SearXNG. And we'll just set it to the next IP in this list. And I'm starting to realize I did a /24, so I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to have to change up my subnet here, which will be interesting and fun at the same time. So let's add this. So add a SearXNG. And then we will need to configure our Ansible AWX instance to be able to deploy out to it. So we need to add it to its inventory file to say, hey, this is another machine that we'll be using to do deployments. So SearXNG, and we just need to add the host name because we have the DNS set up as that. SearXNG, commit to main, and we are good here for our prereqs to set up the virtual machine in our lab. In case you're interested on how all this works, I do have an automation playlist series that essentially goes through me creating all the playbooks that you'll see here, where I will create the VM, patch it, install Docker and Docker Compose, set up and create certs on my stepca server, and then set up Nginx on the server so that essentially it proxies passes to the Docker container, and you can essentially get full-on TLS without needing to worry about certs essentially in your home lab. So that's the playbook that we'll be running. So in here we'll name it SearXNG. The new IP will be, I think, 154. We'll name it just Dragon SearXNG just to make it easy. And then the proxy address. So what we'll actually want to do is go to SearXNG GitHub real quick. We'll look at their GitHub, and we can scroll down, and they have installation steps on their Docker container. So this is a key point in my playbook that Docker and Docker Compose do need to be installed. If you don't know how to install it, feel free to go check out that video that I have on how I automated those steps. But there are essentially two ways that you can do this. One is essentially run it with their caddy container, or if you're an experienced user, I'm not a beginner anymore, guys, not anymore. We'll be just removing the caddy related parts and using our Nginx with our stepca cert, and we'll be going through this step. But to take a look here, point your reverse proxy to 8080 by default. Okay, so we could look in the Docker Compose file, and it should essentially tell me that 8080 for SearXNG should be, that's Redis. Yeah, so 8080 will also be the port. So we'll just do HTTP localhost 8080, and we'll hit next and launch. So this will clearly fail in creating the VM because my project failed to update. So let's take a quick look and let's rerun that. Sometimes it fails to update because it can't reach the Ansible Galaxy Hub for collections. And I've been very tempted to create one locally, like my Yum server. Okay, so that worked. So we can go back to jobs and go back to this. And I think, oh, no, that just edits. I can't remember there was a relaunch button for this whole workflow. Now, workflows are a little bit more interesting because they don't have necessarily the relaunch, so we'll just go back and rerun it from the workflow. So give me 1 second here, and we'll write everything back in. So host name is SearXNG, IP was 154. Yep, that was the last one. Dragon SearXNG, and then HTTP localhost 8080. Hit next, launch, and then now this will go through each one of those playbooks in here and essentially do everything that we'll need for all the prereqs. So after this is done, we'll go through their documentation here to essentially get it all installed, get the SearXNG Docker container with the Docker Compose, any other extra things that we need to configure, like this one here, configuring the secret, and anything else before we start it. And then we'll essentially be able to use it. So once this is finished, we will continue on to show you the last part of the setup. All right, now that it has finished creating the virtual machine, we can now log in via SSH to the server, xng.dragon.local. We'll accept the host key, type in the password, and we essentially now have the server that we can do whatever we want. So we got, Docker installed and everything that we need essentially, except in this case, we don't have Git installed. So if we're going to follow the documentation, let's install Git. So yum install Git. So this looks like it will install it under the user local. Technically, I don't think that matters. It just depends on where you want it, but we'll just follow the documentation for the fun of it here. You can pretty much put it anywhere you want because it's a Docker container. But if you're going to look for specific stuff, you might get it, be consistent with the documentation. So what we'll do is do a CD, and then we'll do the git clone here. And it will clone the repository down, so then we can CD into the directory. So we can see that everything in here should line up with everything in this repository. So based off of here, we'll edit the .env file and generate a secret key. So let's take a look by .env. So the host name, replace the host by the host name, and let's encrypt email. So if you're using Caddy, you'll have to do the email. If you're not, and you're doing doing like the Nginx, then you can just leave that one blank, I believe. So we will do SearXNG.dragon.local. Optional if you run workers, so we will leave those as optional. And we will save that. Then what we'll want to do is run this command, which will essentially replace the key with a different key in the settings.yaml. So we can see in here, xng settings.yaml. This is now a secret key that was generated because this used to be called ultra secret key. So make sure that that does actually update correctly. And then let's see, edit things to your needs, and then we'll be removing the caddy related parts from Docker Compose. So let's take a look here. So we won't need anything with the caddy, so let's close that. Okay, and fun fact, for those of you who don't use like Vi or Vim very often, how I deleted all those lines was if you hit D twice, it'll delete a line. So if you just continuously hold D, it will just keep deleting lines until you stop holding it. So that's a fun thing that will that you can learn if you didn't know that already. So remove that, put in your reverse proxy, which is already pointed. We got that. So now we're at the point where we can do a Docker Compose up in here. So let's do a Docker Compose up -D for detach. and it will pull the SearXNG and Redis. Caddy should not be being pulled anymore because we removed that from the configuration. And then we can see in here that it is listening on 8080 and my Nginx should be working. So what we can look at is now go to https searxng.dragon.local, and you can see here that we have essentially the page for your search. There are preferences that you can set for like categories, some languages, save searches, user interface, the theme, theme style. We'll do doc because doc theme is always the better style, especially when you spend so much time on the computer like I do. It is quite nice. Then you got other things that if you want to set, and then like the engines of where things will search based off of it. So by default, it looks like it'll do, DuckDuckGo. Yeah, that's another one. I was blanking on all the search engines because I mainly use Google. So there's Brave, DuckDuckGo, Google, but you can specify if you want to use other ones as well. Oh, Yahoo, man, I totally forgot about that. That's been a while. So by default, there'll be a few set and other ones that aren't set. So if you want to have other search engines as well, you can enable, disable all, or enable one by one. So now here's like the moment of truth. How does it look when you do a search? So I'm going to do a search, and this is by all means not an ad or a sponsored video from Minis Forum, but I've loved my Minis Forum MS01 so much that this is like one of my main searches that I've searched too much over the course of like the last 6 months, figuring out which one I want to buy, and then getting everything configured for it. So you can see how it does show your store product, things like that, what you would expect going from a link from it. You can see that there's no ads, and like Google, like your first few links might be ads. You don't see that either. You got suggestions as well of other things that you might it might suggest based off of the search, your response times from various other engine queries, your search URL based off of how it got searched. So like I can click on one of the suggestions and it can show you, hey, here's some forms. Technically, I'm hoping my video actually shows up. There's a lot of, let's click on videos real quick. Oh, there we go. My video, third link, guys, third link. But you can see that it's not necessarily as pretty as like Google or whatnot, but it isn't like bad at all, honestly. It pretty much gives you the results that you would expect, based because it uses their search engines anyways. So, but it looks pretty nice for the most part. You can see response times. You can actually see a decent amount. So like you can see other things that you probably weren't expecting, because I wasn't even expecting half of these to look for anywhere. So, but that's pretty much it. So you can self-host this. You can have a lot of fun. You can start using this as your default meta search engine if you want to, or you can just stick with Google and then just get a million ads about everything that you've searched for in the last 6 months. So, but anywho, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave me a like, comment, or subscribe to my channel. So we'll see you guys later. Bye.